Welcome to Portland Film Beat. My name's Dave Poland, and my guest tonight is Paige Parker and Bob Spees. Paige and Bob are both sound people. They do a lot of sound recording. They got a lot to talk about tonight, and I'm excited to hear them talk. Bob was one of the original sound people on the original Blob with Steve McQueen. So he knows a lot about sound and how it's changed over the years. Tell us how you got started. Paige, we'll start with you. Tell us how you got started with doing this.
Well, my father was a preacher, and I was a musician, and so I had a natural desire to want to record everything that I heard and that I played. And so my dad during church would have me do video recording and tape recording, and eventually he would wind up on the radio. And then I made my first recording in 1980, and it was my trip to the dairy farm, and I still have the tape too.
I bet.
And
you didn't put it out on the internet yet?
Yeah, not on the internet yet, but I probably should. It's pretty funny. It's pretty comical. And you know, I've worked all through the 80s basically in church until I got old enough. I had a couple mentors. Blue Star is one. He does live sound all over the country. And then a famous reggae artist called The Scientist taught me a lot about sound and everything. And Dan Healy from the Grateful Dead, I learned a lot from him.
Right.
And let's see, Steve Kuykendall is probably one of my earliest mentors. He was actually in the church, and he taught me about the board and everything like that. And I worked all through the 90s doing concerts with Blue Star all over the country, so I got to meet some of my favorite bands.
But you just do film now, right?
I just do film now too, but I do both, honestly.
You do commercials.
I do commercials. I do even audio recording as well. I have and I'm a professional AV technician, and I have a journeyman certificate of audio engineering. I went to school and had an epiphany while I was in school. I took a program called Golden Ears, and it goes through the entire area of audibility, 20 hertz to 20,000 kilohertz, which is what we perceive as humans as sound, and it uses pink and white noise. And so basically what happened to me was a good metaphor to make people understand what happened was you could make cookies when just pour the flour into the bowl, or you could take a sifter and sift the flour, and you have a much fluffier, better cookie.
So that's what you did with the sound.
I hear, the particles of flour going through the sifter is what happened with frequency for me. So instead of hearing everything as once, I'm hearing, okay, there's 50 hertz, there's 8 hertz, there's 2K.
You've got a different way of hearing things.
So, so it completely, I had an epiphany about sound. So I hear individual frequencies instead of everything all together. And I hear everything together too. I haven't lost that, but I hear the frequencies much more louder, and it's like, it makes Mozart more humorous to me, because you hear frequencies just in a different way.
Bob, you've had quite a few inventions, and you go all the way back. You started, you started with the Blob?
Yes. That was the first film I worked on. I did the sound work, about the last 50 sound numbers out of 1,000. And dialogue recording on the set all the time, and then afterwards a lot of sound effects, Foley, and then I did the laying in of the dialogue and effects.
It's a lot different now than it was then too, wasn't it?
You're actually working with a mag stripe. The films were 35, so it's big enough to handle. 16 is a little tedious. Right. So basically you build up the work print, and then that goes to the mix, where they make the combined track, which then goes on the optical track of the film.
Right.
And we also make an M&E track, so if it's dubbed later, they don't have to deal with the dialogue.
So Bob, what do you find as challenges do you face on film sets back then and now?
Extraneous sound is the most challenging.
Refrigerators, air conditioners.
And
was it harder to get rid of those back then?
I'd say about the same.
Is it
actually.
right? Okay.
Yeah. Of the
Were people more as aware of it back then, the same that they are now?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they always
The
have been.
microphones were just as sensitive, but they were bigger, physically bigger.
Okay.
And of course, sound itself, the vibration in the air hasn't changed
No,
at all.
not at all.
So
And the microphones and the mic positionings haven't changed.
Yeah.
Really?
That's
Okay.
all very
Okay,
much
okay,
the
so
same.
outside of extraneous noise, Paige, what other problems do you find, challenges do you find on film
Getting
sets?
directors, ADs, and producers to realize audio is almost everything.
It is.
I would say it's 80% audio, 20% visual. Because you could take Star Wars, for instance, and turn the sound off, and it's not quite as spectacular. But you add John Williams and the good audio in there, and it becomes an entirely different
Right.
film.
And here's the thing: is that one of the things I've read is you can have a film that's kind of poorly shot, and great sound, and you'll watch it if it's got a good story.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But if it's really well shot, great story, and the sound isn't good, it wears
really
on
takes
you. It
away.
irritates
Yeah,
you.
it does.
So sound is actually really important. And so you have a director who's focused on the visual, on the camera, and is ignoring the sound.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
I give him a headset, and I let him. I always have an extra headset for whoever, AD, director, producer, or whoever is financing the film. A headset. So I always have
financer's a
one
good one.
available.
It's good
for
to
him.
get the financer
It
involved. So your
is,
film's going to
it
sound like
is,
crap.
It is right, indeed.
Right. Okay.
So-
And Bob, you approach it kind of the same way.
Yeah, I sort of get a rapport with the director, and then try to operate with so the director doesn't really have to spend much time thinking about the audio. We just do a good job of recording it. Now, if there's problems, I get the director's authorization if I have to compromise. Like if I, we can't do
Because you're gonna get
ambient or
blamed.
something.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yep.
Yeah, but
so it's always good to say cut.
Yeah,
And redo it.
Right.
And ADR it on the spot when you're
Yeah.
done.
All right.
And-
Well, here. How do you react when you hear this? And I know you've heard it.
Yeah.
We'll fix it in post.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. It is a joke.
It's
Sound.
a joke to me,
Yeah.
Let's see your jazz hands,
Right.
know?
Right. It is a joke.
So,
There's also, it shouldn't be fix it in post. It should
Yeah.
be improve it in post.
Well, improve it
yeah,
if you
if it
have
needs
to
it.
do that.
Because if you hear
it
someone
needs
say
it.
fix it in post and it's
Yeah.
sound,
But I'm a firm believer.
because I've done some bad sound
Yeah,
on my films.
right.
I've done horrible sound, and I learned the hard way.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer of doing the ADR after you shoot with a shotgun and lavs. It's very important because you capture the vibes of, on the sound stage. You want to capture the vibe and the nature of the actors and actresses. It's very important. Otherwise, you kind of lose it. You want to also have them, when you're ADRing it, making the motions that they're making as they're doing it in the shot. And so
Right.
you want to closely, as for editing purposes, closely follow that as possible
Right.
for good quality, epic sound that is crisp and clear. And,
Right.
and when I see a director smile from listening to the audio, that's what makes me happy. And I know that things are good, and I feel good about things.
Good.
Yeah.
Do you ever get the opportunity to go to the film set and make certain that you know that the sound is going to, what kind of extraneous noise is going to be there?
Well, in my case, for studio shooting, almost always. Location shooting is not always practical. You don't have access to the site many times, except for the little window that you
Right.
do the shooting. And
You can
then
make you cringe too, can't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I try to every chance I get in and find out what
Of course.
situation I'm dealing with, and so I anticipate what kind of microphones I'm going to be using, how many microphones I'm going to be using, where I'm going to be hiding the microphones,
Right.
And
We'll talk about that in a little
everything.
bit.
Yeah. Okay, great, fantastic.
Okay, you go to a set. There's extraneous noise. It's an outdoor set.
Yeah.
You talk to the director and say, okay, here's what's going on with this. It's going to be noisy. There's nothing we can do about it. These microphones pick up the sound.
Absolutely.
We can't filter out what's going on there. and he says, "Oh, we'll fix it in post," and you try and talk to him. What is it like when you know there's a problem and it's going to hit him,
Yeah.
and there's nothing you can do about it? He's not listening to you.
Right. Well,
Do you just say, "Okay, I've told you,
that's-
there's not much I can do"?
Right. That's
Yes.
you.
The director is, of course, king.
Right.
You know, and you follow what he wants to try to capture what is being envisioned in the producer and director's mind as closely as possible. So if that's what he wants, okay, I'll do it. But I will make sure that he knows that it's going to be not very good and not up to my standards personally as an engineer. And so I would recommend that we ADR it in a quiet, in a sound booth as soon as possible, and then follow with the reels actually the dailies playing so they can keep the same movement inside the sound booth and everything like that.
Okay.
To closely follow that.
Well, you're going to get blamed, and that's going to be hard to do.
Oh,
So
yeah.
here's a good question.
Yeah.
What can actors do to help themselves sound better? That's important because a lot of times it's about the actor's sound.
Turn off your cell phones.
Okay.
And listen to the director closely.
Right.
And
Listen
try
to the audio person.
Yeah, indeed, and try to not look at the camera. A lot of the time.
Yeah. And
What's the biggest mistake newcomers make?
I think leaving their cell phones on would be one good one. And let's see here. Let's
All right,
see,
here's a question.
I say
Listen to the directors and AD too
Okay. What were you
very
gonna say, Bob?
closely.
I was going to say for the actors, be aware of where the microphones are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they're often, we use very directional mics, particularly on location, to get rid of or to avoid picking up extraneous noise as much as we can. So they pretty well need that kind of microphone. Really, you're aiming right at the actor's mouth, and it helps if he talks toward it. It gets better presence.
Right.
Indeed.
But of course, it's all modified by the details of the scene. I mean, sometimes you don't want super good presence. So
Yeah, and you want to enunciate in the dialect, properly, and get into those microphones and make mad love really to the microphone. Don't be shy. They're not going to bite you.
Okay, great. All right, so do you have a funny situation you can share?
Sure, I definitely do.
Bob, do you have one too?
not really. No, I couldn't think of one.
Well, actors forgetting to take off their lavs when they say something
one thing.
personal, or when they go use a restroom, or on-set quickies. Those are some of the funny
Serious?
things I've
You've heard?
captured on tape.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll have to listen to
So,
that later.
yeah, right. So take off your lavs. It's
that's
important.
okay. Explain what is better: a lavalier, shotguns, lavaliers hidden in the scenery under the table,
Yeah.
or else tell us when and why.
You can use them on all different. There's many different. It's very situational, and variables are constantly changing. For example, if you have lots of wind, you're going to want to use something like this.
A cat. That's what we call a dead
yes,
cat.
a dead cat and a zeppelin inside of here. And
It does. You can get rid of a lot of the wind.
You can
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot, and I also use inside of it. I will typically also have a smaller cat on here, a little furry guy, just
Inside on it.
with in extreme wind situations a lot of the time.
Right.
And a lot of the time I use multiple microphones and stuff like that
Yeah.
too.
Okay.
So there's lots of situations. I also do editing of audio, so I care about the panning and the stereo field of, that's what I perceive and everybody perceives with frequency and noise, and audio is a stereo field around us. And so I use the panning a lot, and we'll load it into different, like Pro Tools I use a lot for editing, and then I can make stuff fly across the room, or I'll use multiple mics to capture that, like a ball flying across the room, or someone stepping walking across
You don't
the
use
floor.
Foley to do that?
You know, yeah, I do use Foley sometimes.
Explain Foley.
You know, Foley is making the sounds. You're constructing and building a sound for a certain scene, or
a lot of people have never
so,
seen like an edited track that's got 10 sounds deep.
yeah.
You know?
Like I've had, for example, walking up a staircase with high heels. I've had microphones placed underneath the stairway, on the sides, on the tops, and above. And
Right, so you got like
I
5
can
or 6
capture,
tracks going.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So you can use your panning to really, you know, make
Move it,
move
go
it
up.
through,
Make it follow,
you know, and
yeah.
make it follow actually in
That's
the
important.
movie. And it's like we're moving into 5.1 and 7.1, and that's what you want. That's exactly what you want. More microphones you use, the more you can. With individual channels and individual tracks, you can make your movie just that much better, and the audio just is that much more beautiful.
Yeah, but because it just brings the movie more to life.
It
Absolutely.
does, absolutely.
All right, so you know what we're going to do now? I want you guys to tell them a little bit about the history of some of the sound that you brought with you.
Indeed,
I'm afraid
indeed,
we'll run out of time and you
indeed,
won't get to talk
indeed.
about it. So
Sure,
keep going.
sure, indeed.
Let
Well,
Bob talk once in a while too, Paige.
indeed, yeah, of course, yeah. Bob. I feel like I should be Bob's assistant, honestly. You know, but
It's
just,
amazing.
you
I've been
know.
on set with in a film where these guys were doing the sound recording, and Paige doesn't talk this much.
Yeah, right.
He's funny. He's really.
I feel lucky.
He gets to talk. He's having fun. Neither is Bob. But
Totally.
they do a great job.
Yep. We try to just
They
follow the
they
director
do the sound
and step
well,
back.
but they
Yep.
step back and you
know
hardly
when
know
to,
they're there. So.
you know, in music it would be a rest. We know when to take a rest and when not to play. You know.
Tell us about the history of sound. Right
So,
here.
like in the 1700s, you know, this is one of the first ways we've kind of captured sound, and we had the desire, you know, as humans evolved, to capture sound.
They probably can't hear you because they can hear that thing.
Right. More and more, we've wanted to, as we've evolved as humans and our ears have evolved, we've wanted to capture the beautiful sounds that we hear around us in nature, and we mimic nature at first, and then.
So that was one of the first
This
things.
is one of the first things, and here's kind of the inside guts. I don't know if you can.
I think we've all seen it.
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah. So it's like a little player piano. And then, you know, we moved on into Thomas Edison, of course, who, you know,
phonograph.
yep, brought along that, and then moved us along with audio as well.
Then we had the 8-track tapes, the
Yeah,
cassette tapes.
8-track. That's what
the
I
CDs.
started
Yeah.
out as, but
And now it's all digital.
yep,
Oh, yeah.
indeed it is. It's gone into something like this, which is an SD card, which can hold hours and hours and
How
hours.
many gigabytes is that?
This one is 16.
Okay, give it to Bob and let Bob explain what's actually inside there.
There you
Oh.
go.
Because
Yeah,
people don't
indeed.
know. Explain
There
what's
you
in
go.
there, Bob.
Both
Okay.
those.
This inside is a silicon chip, just a memory chip, and it's.
It's not a disc or anything spinning.
Oh
it's
no,
just a
there's no
silicone
moving
chip.
parts at all, unless there's a lock, which is just a switch, you
Right,
know,
on the
a
side.
right lock. But inside is a die, as I say. It's about a 1/16 of an inch square, and it's just furry with leads that go to the pins on the card to make the electrical connection.
And it's actually so small they actually put it in that thing so that you
yeah,
can hold
it's-
on to it.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's the main reason it's this big. The works is smaller than the 6 on the 16 gigabyte, if you can see that. I don't know.
Right. They can't, but that's all right. They
and
know.
the difference in size, these came out first, and then this.
That's a
and
compact
nowadays,
flash
Where do you
card.
think it's going to go next?
about half this size.
Yeah, or
and for
it
the
will
same capacity. Yeah.
have nothing moving at all and be able to completely be stored everything inside of the unit, which I think will be moving towards.
And this is what you
know.
use, actually. Hold it up
I
so they can
use
see it.
this and also sound devices. This is a Marantz PMD 671, and I've used also sound devices, which I prefer to use, and 8-track a sound device with a mixer sometimes, and of course we use our trusty shotguns
Yeah,
like
all the
this
time.
here. So, This one's a good one from the 70s. It's a beauty, and it produces incredible sound.
Compared
So
to even the ones nowadays?
even it's better than the ones in nowadays. It's like a fine guitar that's been aged,
Yeah,
you know, like wine
a Gibson
almost.
or a Les Paul, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
indeed, you know. Yep.
Yeah,
Or a Martin.
a
Yep.
Stradivarius.
Yeah,
There you
indeed.
go.
There you go. Strat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
About
indeed.
the
Go ahead, Bob.
about the tracks. Nowadays, you can easily have a track per mic. In the old days, in those movies, you have to do a mix on the set if you have more than one mic.
Right.
And
You only had one mic to record at a time, really.
one channel, one track.
channel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could
Imagine
have
that.
multiple
Well, these
mics.
now they
I
record
can't
up
even.
to 16.
Yeah, right, and more. You know,
Yeah, it's
and it's
basically as
just
many as you want.
phenomenal. You know,
How would you have survived back then?
I don't
You
know.
wouldn't
I
have.
don't know. I would probably have to line up a bunch of these machines. Is probably what I would do. I would be fanatical.
I can tell.
You know, like
Yeah.
collect them from around the country and get them. But yeah, Bob also, you know, when Bob started, you know, he was using things like this, you know, and
Yeah, it's
this is
for projection,
where
yeah.
for projection and stuff. And
Yeah, people
you know,
don't
this is
realize how
about-
big the reels are.
Yeah, this is like 20 minutes or so, Bob.
This-
is
this
it?
is.
This is 20
Yeah,
minutes, and
that's
this is
probably three reels worth.
yeah.
So
Okay,
about
so,
an hour.
An
Yeah,
hour.
an
Yeah, but they had to
hour.
use like two of
Yeah.
them. They had to start one.
That's right.
And
Yep,
you didn't
indeed.
notice it, but that one would start going when the other one right at a certain
Yeah,
point.
it's called changeover. If you could, if you watch for
They
it.
don't have to do that now because they're mostly digital, but they
Yeah,
still
indeed.
use them somewhere.
But,
Yep.
but if it's
Indeed.
digitized, like the Blob we were watching last night on that DVD, have the cue marks in the corner. You can because they just did transfer to the DVD off a theater print. So you have the cue mark, the warning, and then do it.
See, people don't realize why a projectionist was actually a skilled job.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Yeah,
was.
it
It was
was
a skilled
definitely,
job.
and a very dangerous one at times too.
'Cause they can burn-
because it
yeah,
could
if it-
burn.
if
You
it's
could burn
nitrate.
down.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, people don't
nitrate
realize
and-
how
how
flammable
dangerous
celluloid is.
It was. It
Well,
was a
yeah,
brave,
celluloid, nitrate.
brave soul to get up in those booths.
All right, let's get.
Yeah.
Thank you for that history.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's a
And
pleasure.
where do you see it's just going to get smaller?
Well,
They
it's
can't
going to
get those
just
things-
move into devices like that. We're going to have handheld. That everything is there inside of
It's
it.
going to get lighter, so it's
you know,
going to be
lighter
easier
and
as a sound
smaller.
person.
Yeah.
You know, but even the cameras. You know, you're seeing a lot of these DSLRs. You know, 5Ds and 7Ds.
The Epic just came out with
you
a
know.
it went from an 8-pound camera or 15-pound to a 2.5-pound camera.
Yeah,
it's a mini
see,
Epic, and it's actually
Red and Black Magic, and all of them are moving towards just lighter, smaller things, non-moving parts, solid state, and it's just moving forward in
right.
that
I've
direction.
been on a film
yeah.
set actually where they shot in 16 millimeter.
Yeah.
And they had to cover the camera with all these blankets
Yeah.
because the sound person kept picking
film.
up the
Totally.
Right. Yeah.
and it was
Indeed.
it's like you can't have that. It was
Totally.
you can't really edit that out.
Yep, and I'm
right.
very well, you can in some ways. I do editing as well, and
Okay.
I've had to fix things.
Well, you can't
And I've
fix-
also had to make people say sentences that they didn't really
Right.
say, you know, and edit them together like that. But things are moving towards being all-in-one, solid-state devices.
It's good.
You know, it is
The
kind
less
of
moving
good.
parts, the better.
Indeed,
Absolutely.
indeed, yes.
All right.
I
What was
concur.
Bob? What was the most difficult time you have had on a film set? Shut-
Obstinate actors probably is the most difficult
is that
time.
right?
Yeah. But
You don't have to mention any names. We'll just listen.
that's absolutely, yeah. I've done work on movies other than the ones we mentioned here, so
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. But as far as technical problems, we didn't really have any. I mean, it was a horrible job lugging the gear around because
It's gotten so much easier.
yeah, I mean, we recorded. The main recording was on 35 millimeter mag stripe as big noisy transport for that, and our protection was 1/4 inch using Ranger tone for the sync, and you know that's a 2-piece recorder, and they're big and heavy, and they're either out in the van outside or else you have a blimp box that actually is on wheels, and you sit on top of it. There's a mixer that I talked about for doing the multi-mic mix before you record. There's just one track. Now, understand there were multi-track recorders back in those days, but they didn't use them on sets, at least in my experience.
Right. Okay. So, Paige, What was the most difficult time you've had on a film set?
Well, I've had a certain director who I will not name just be very derogatory towards a staff member of mine, and repeatedly, and I've talked to him about it, and he just kind of didn't get it, and he was kind of, sometimes they're kind of riding a little high, and I understand they're very busy. I understand that, but I just kind of won't take abuse,
I
you
know
know,
what
to
you're
a
talking
certain
about.
point.
I know what you're
I'll
talking
take
about.
a lot of abuse, you know, but there comes a point where
just can't do
when
it.
you're hurting other people, I could draw the line there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've only walked off the set one set ever,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll never do it again. But I don't think I'll ever do it again. I
Mm-hmm.
hope to never do it again. But I learned a lot from that too, you know.
All right, what was the most rewarding time you've had on a film set?
The most rewarding time I have had on a set is when a director is beaming with happiness, because
The sound is
the
great,
sound
and,
is
and
perfect.
the images are great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed. And yep,
Bob,
indeed.
tell us some of the famous directors you've worked with.
Well, famous.
We may not even know them because
Yeah, well,
you're so old. I'm just,
Well, yeah.
I had to say it.
yeah.
He's 77, a young 77.
I know it, he is.
He's,
I've seen him on the
it's
set.
the new 50.
This
really.
guy's
Yes,
carrying,
he is.
lugging
Yeah.
equipment up
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah.
50
He's-
steps.
He's
Yeah,
a
the
50-year-old
director
man.
on the Blob was, his name was Irvin S. Yeworth Jr. and everybody knew him as Shorty. Another director I worked with is Bill Naud. He was centered more in Baltimore. Incidentally, the Blob was made in southeastern Pennsylvania in a little place called Chester Springs. And in buildings that have been used for years by the Philadelphia Art Museum as an art studio. So they all had their northern exposure skylights that had to be covered. In Portland here, I've worked somewhat with Ciro Fusco and much more with Jeff Scott Taylor.
Okay, yeah. Jeff does a great job. He was on
He
my
does.
show.
He is an up and coming.
And I want to actually do a behind the scenes with him, Portland Film.
Yeah,
maybe
Sure.
in
indeed.
the
Yeah, yeah.
future.
He's an up and coming, very talented artist. And then I'd like to also showcase a couple other excellent artists. There's Melissa Gregory Rue, who has gone to many festivals where I've done audio for that. And then there's Jeff Rawls, who did Duende Suit of Lights, which was an excellent movie. And
That was
and
before
won
my
many
time.
awards
Okay.
now, 3 awards so
Okay,
far.
okay, we've got 25 seconds.
Okay.
What do you want to do next, Paige?
Well, I'd love to keep on moving up. I would like to keep working for the big boys when they call me, and big girls.
Okay, great.
You know?
And you, Bob, is it helping Paige?
It's helping
Guiding
Paige.
Paige.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
He is
I'm a
good-
technical geek, so I get to fix all the cables and fix the recorders,
he's a
this kind of
technical
thing,
wizard
microphones.
genius.
Here's the thing is, I never got to tell you all of Bob's background, and it's extensive, and I wish I could. Anyway, we're running out of time here at Portland Film Beat. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank Paige for being here,
Thank
and
you
Bob for
kindly.
being
It's
here.
an honor.
I want to
Thank you.
thank my directors, Phil and Sue Holmes. They did a great job. Until next time on Portland Film Beat, shoot for the silver screen.